J.J. Abrams. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
How big is the smile on your face today?
I'm very relieved that the movie is finally coming out to the world.
I mean, that must be an understatement. I mean, when I walked down here to the hotel, I walked through Leicester Square. There are still stormtroopers there. They are still clearing up.
They're not going to leave. I think they're just going to be there for a while. No, it really it's an amazing thing to see how much this saga, this world, means to so many people, and we knew that, of course,
yes,
from the beginning. But I feel like we've all been in this bubble working on the movie, and to finally get to have conversations like this, to finally get to screen the film for fans and see people, in some cases, show up in costume and loiter in Leicester Square.
And was the 11-year-old you kind of looking at that crowd thinking that's me, that's where I would have been when the first movie opened?
Well, I certainly have been a Star Wars fan since I was 10, but to see it from this vantage point is a really incredible thing, especially in this age. I mean, when I was 10 years old, because there was no social media and computers were the size of buildings. The idea that there would be a kind of a way to aggregate, the only thing was standing online for the movie or maybe buying a magazine about it. Now, the community of Star Wars fans is so connected and so vocal, and when they come together, it really is a powerful thing to see.
When we last spoke to you on the program, it was for Star Trek Into
Mm-hmm.
Darkness. We had a long conversation about colons, actually, and about the fact that it was Star Trek No colon Into Darkness, but there is a colon in this title.
Yes, it was contractual. I wanted one.
You absolutely had to have one. But you said to us then that you made the Star Trek movie as much for those who weren't fans as for those who were.
Mm.
Did you approach this with the same mindset, or was it completely different, having been such a fan?
Well, this was such a continuum of something that we knew was much more of a saga than what the Star Trek story was going to be. What I mean by that is there was a sense of inevitability that we wanted to make sure, working with Larry Kasdan, it was important to him too. We wanted to make sure that the story felt, in this episode 7, that it was a continuum from, of course, 4, 5, and 6. The Star Trek movie, it felt. I guess the best way to answer this question is just to say, of course, yes, you don't want any movie to feel like you have to do work or homework or studying to understand what the story is. But there was a different feeling approaching this than anything else I'd worked on before, and part of that is that the Star Wars saga feels like it is this whole cloth, and I felt that it was important to do what George did in the first film, which is drop the audience into a story where you're not explaining and spoon-feeding everything, but you give enough information so the audience can infer everything that's important. For example, in the first film, you don't know what the Clone Wars are, but you hear about it. Yeah. You don't know what the Empire really wants, but you hear about it. You don't know what the Senate really is, but you hear about it. There are all these things, dark times, and a million little references, and it was that sort of approach of respect to the audience and to the characters that allowed, I think, the story to have a sort of this expansive quality, that the world went beyond what it is you were seeing. And so we wanted to make sure that if you were just dropped into this world, you wouldn't need to have seen episodes 1, 2, and 3, or 4, 5, and 6 to understand where you were. And that really was sort of taking the lead from what George did.
Yeah. When Sam Mendes was on the show a few weeks back talking James Bond, in fact, Daniel Craig told us he actually only finished the movie like the Saturday before it was finally readily available. He was mixing some extra dialogue, and he had to be pulled away. 2 more weeks would have been perfectly fine.
Sure.
When did you actually finish the last comma, the last full stop, the last bit of dialogue? When was it finally
last
closed?
colon.
Yeah,
We basically we finished the movie a few weeks ago. We went back in to do one little sound adjustment for something, but it wasn't a big thing. But this was not one of those down to the wire, we have no time, or not enough time situations. I've been there too, but this felt comfortable.
The first thing I want to say, obviously this conversation will avoid spoilers. There are so many people who I know aren't listening to this conversation because they don't want to hear anything about it before they go and see the movie. Okay, so the only thing I want to say is I think the movie was beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
And it's the first 30 seconds. I think people will go, oh, okay, fine. I'm going to relax because this is going to be great.
Oh, wow.
So it manages to be beautiful and grungy at the same time. It feels like it's 1977 again. So avoiding all the spoilers, which I know you do because you spent the last few years doing it. What can you tell us about the story that people are going to go and see?
Well, I can say that it is it's a brand new story with brand new characters, and yet it exists in a familiar world. The approach we took was to go backwards in order to go forwards, to go back to the sort of tenets of Star Wars. Someone I work with said that Star Wars is like a Western. If you're going to do a Western, you're going to probably have horses. You're probably going to have a cowboy too. You're probably going to have a saloon and maybe a bank, maybe a stagecoach, a bad guy who's probably going to wear black. There are these things that you're just going to inherit given the genre. So this new story takes place in a world and with kind of a history repeats itself thematic. It's about a character named Rey, who is played by Daisy Ridley, this incredible newcomer, Londoner, who is a scavenger. She's on her own. She has learned to survive and is, because of that, a sort of very capable, independent, but very isolated and lonely character. You've also got John Boyega, also a Londoner, playing.
The London influence in this movie is strong.
Yeah, it's outrageous. He's playing a stormtrooper who has a crisis of conscience and abandons his post and leaves the First Order, which is what the Empire has sort of morphed into. And the two of them cross paths with this droid, our new droid BB-8, and the three of them begin this adventure. And it really is, that's really all you need to know about sort of how this story starts. But the larger idea, the larger story, what's happened to Han, what's happened to Luke, what's happened to Leia. If you care about Star Wars, there are questions that are answered in the movie. And if you've never seen Star Wars, you get to meet these characters in a way that I think works as well.
How much tougher, how much different a task is it to cast a trilogy of, presumably when you're looking at characters like Daisy, who you mentioned, they're going to be in this for a while. Is it more difficult to cast 3 movies than if you were casting for 1?
You know, every movie, every television show, every play, you obviously try to cast the people that you think are the best. When we were casting for the pilot for Lost, we had an enormous number of characters that needed to be cast, and we discovered as we were going through it what a puzzle it was. The best version of this is you have an idea and you're willing to go for the better idea, meaning you have a sense of what a character might be like, what he or she might look like, the qualities they might have, but you need to be open to the alchemy of an actor you didn't anticipate and the words that are written. So when someone comes in and gives a reading and you think, oh, this could be great, that's a piece of it. Then you have to look at the whole puzzle and say, well, who else is in this, virtual poster? And so this was a whole, as it always is, process of trying to figure out who are the best people, and knowing this was the beginning of a new trilogy. We had to be mindful, as certainly, the casting directors of the first Harry Potter film knew this was not a one-off. This was going to be a real, essentially a life-changing and many-year process.
I've got some listeners' questions, and overwhelmingly supportive. Absolutely love the movie. 2 to 4, 5 stars, and so on. Ricky Carvel picks up on a point a number of people are asking about. I saw the original Star Wars as a 7-year-old and it was without a doubt the most exciting cinema experience I've ever had. I now have a 7-year-old son, and I want him to have something like the same experience. But this film is a 12A. Is this film suitable for him? And a number of people are saying it's a 12A, but it should be a PG. They're not sure why it's been given the certificate. Can you give some guidance here?
Well, here's what I'd say. We have a 9-year-old, and this 9-year-old has teenage siblings. And so, like any kid who has older brothers or sisters, he has seen probably a few things that he might not have otherwise. Certainly things that our oldest would not have seen at 9 years old. So I know that for him, seeing something that is rated 12, may be a much easier decision. It honestly, for me, feels like it's something that's for everyone. Yes. And I don't think, because it is a fantasy, and at the heart of Star Wars, it was always a fantasy. I don't believe that this movie is too intense for a kid that age. Having said that, I always recommend to my friends, and as I would to your listeners, it's not a bad idea to see the movie yourself and then make the determination for your child. But I would hate to say it's great for 5-year-olds. Take your 5-year-old and have someone go and say, "Ooh, that was too intense for a 5-year-old." So I would say make sure that you either see it yourself or ask friends who've seen it.
Your wife gave an interview in which she said that you were most worried about what your 9-year-old would think about the movie. What does your 9-year-old think?
Well, he loves it, but what you come to learn very early on is two things. One is, kids are always going to be brutally honest, no matter what. But two, don't necessarily trust the people who talk to you about what you've done, because it's I know that he's a great kid, and he says he loves the movie, but it's also it's Daddy's movie. So but I would ask his friends before I would ask him.
Fair enough. I'm going to see if I can fit in these 4 questions before we finish. Keith Fraser, who would win in a fight, Han Solo or Captain Kirk?
In a fight?
Yep. Between the two.
It's a tricky one because I would say Han Solo, because I think he would just shoot first.
Martin Chatterton asks, what was going through your mind when Harrison got injured?
It was terrifying, and it was truly horrible. And I think that when you are going through something that is so shocking, you don't know really ever what is going through your mind. It's sort of this thing that happens, and you sort of operate on a different.
Did you get
level.
Injured yourself trying to help Harrison?
I did, yeah.
Lift this thing up?
Yeah, I like an idiot. I tried to lift this hydraulic door, and in the process broke my back. I fractured my L4, and it was a really unfortunate day. And luckily for all of us, Harrison Ford was not. He was not injured at the way he could have been, though he did break his leg at a horrible, 90-degree angle. It was this really screwed up moment. But I will say that he came back remarkably stronger and faster and more energized than I think I'd ever seen him, and I've known him since 1990.
Here's the question, which probably has to be acted out. This is Andy Sisma's question, and we'll probably finish with this, okay? Does he love this movie? I mean, really love it in capital letters. Is it as good as he imagined it would be? Man, I hope it's good. Okay.
Wow.
So,
am I supposed to answer this?
No. Okay. I'm going to reinterpret it. Was there a moment? I said I sighed with relief after 30 seconds because the opening is so beautiful, as indeed is the conclusion.
Oh, thank you.
Was there a moment when you internally said, "I've got this," where you sighed and thought, "Okay, I have it"?
I will tell you, I never had that moment holistically about the movie, but there were moments making the film where I felt like where I knew things were working, where I knew Daisy was giving an extraordinary performance, where I knew Han and Leia together was a powerful moment, where I knew that Andy Serkis or Donald Gleason or Adam Driver or any of these actors were making me almost giggle behind the camera because I thought, oh, they're doing such an incredible job on a daily basis. Whether it was the sets, the costumes, the lighting. I mean, it was when we were in Abu Dhabi shooting for this desert planet called Jakku, there were moments constantly where I thought, oh my God, this really feels like Star Wars. And that to me was the thing that kept me going, feeling like I was working with this amazing cast and crew, all of whom were doing extraordinary work, all in the same direction, which is to bring this vital and relevant, but also, fantastic world to life, and in an authentic way. So it was less, oh, I've got this, than, oh my God, I'm in such good company, and the work that's being done is extraordinary.
J.J. Abrams, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much.